Hello everyone, my name is Jay Walter, and this is Rebuilding. Today's quote is by Bradley Whitford. Infuse your life with action. Don't wait for it to happen. Make it happen. Make your own future. Make your own hope. Make your own love, and whatever your beliefs, honor your Creator, not by passively waiting for grace to come down from upon high, but by doing what you can to make grace happen. Yourself, right now, right down here on earth. Let's start rebuilding. My guest today is Paula Jean Ferri. Paula has always been in love with books, even before she learned to read. Once she learned how, there was no turning back. She read so much growing up that she was once grounded from books for an entire summer during middle school. She dreamed of being a writer as long as she can remember. She grew up in Logandale, Nevada, leaving her hometown to attend both Snow College and Brigham Young University, Hawaii, to obtain a degree in International Cultural Studies with an emphasis in communication. Her senior year of high school, Paula started making noises. At 24, she was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome. This has given her a unique perspective that she wants to share with the world. She currently resides in Salt Lake City, Utah, as an active blogger and writer. In addition to reading and writing, Paula loves singing and dancing in almost any genre. She loves being in and watching theater productions, especially any musical performances. She is usually up for almost any activity, as long as it involves people. Welcome, Paula, today to our show, Rebuilding.
Thank you so much.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what makes Paula tick?
Well, Tourette syndrome makes me tick.
Okay.
Sorry,
no pun intended there.
Pun totally intended.
Pun totally intended.
Love
yes.
puns. I love people and I love stories. There was even a point in my life where I had forgotten that I wanted to be a writer. I've always been writing. I've always been a journaler, but I got more involved with people. I went through social work classes. I went through psychology classes. People and the stories they have always absolutely fascinated me. And so that's something that I've paid a lot of attention to, and it's something that has definitely shaped where I'm at and how I live my life today.
Oh, great. That's fascinating. I love people's stories. What makes them tick, what makes things go on. So the reason we're here with Rebuilding is facing our fears and facing those obstacles in our lives that really are what builds us. Tell us about your desire to be here and to talk about your story. Tell us your story.
And that's the fun part is a life story can be broken down into so many individual stories.
Yes.
Part of why I thought this would be a good fit and something that I like to talk about when I write in my books is, of course, my Tourette syndrome. It's been something that has absolutely shaped me, even though it started much later in life than most people. Most people with Tourette's will usually start around 4 or 5 years old, and I didn't start till I was 17. The difference in my mind was, oh, that's a weird noise. It was like a hiccup. It didn't hurt, but I was old enough to be able to communicate that nothing was wrong. There's no problems. I wasn't a troublemaker. I already had a personality established, so right. I wasn't being told I was a bad kid. It was more just like a cough or a hiccup to me. It was just something that happened for the first 7 years until I was officially diagnosed. But even then, it brought with it its own unique set of challenges. When I was a social work major in college, I was actually sort of kicked out of the program. My professors told me they couldn't place me in an internship because of these noises that I make. I wasn't diagnosed at the time. And that was really hard. It was something I had put a couple years into at this point. I had interviewed and applied to even be part of this program, and And now they're telling me after 2 years in it that I couldn't be placed in an internship, which meant I couldn't graduate. It was the first time in my life I had ever failed any, much less all of my classes.
Wow.
And had to completely restart and rebuild. And that was all thanks to my Tourette syndrome. But it's been such a great opportunity, and my life has been better because of that. And it's that hindsight and teaching the lessons that I've learned with having Tourette's, embracing how awkward it can be at times, embracing the hard, persecution that can happen, because people don't get it. They don't always understand. And I get comments, and I just tend to laugh them off, but others may not have that because they don't see it the same way.
Right. So that must have been kind of scary to say, oh, I've got this path all planned. I really want to do this. And they say, no, you can't. And it's because of something you really can't control.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely frustrating.
Yeah. So did you feel like you were kind of the only person that's been in this situation? Did you feel kind of isolated, or how did you kind of react to this?
I was kind of
denial?
Shocked at first. I mean, coming from the mindset of it's like a cough or a hiccup, it's just this noise that happens, and most people understanding that. The first couple of years with family members, I love my family. This is going to make them sound a little bad, but they're wonderful people. But we're just all trying to understand something that was so totally different.
Right.
They kept wondering what was wrong. We sent me to doctor after doctor after doctor who had no idea what was going on. And when I would talk to people the first time they would experience it, they would say, well, is it this? Is it this? Have you tried this? Almost like they were trying to fix me, but I'm not broken.
Right.
There was nothing broken about me. And so I didn't particularly care. So it just kind of caught me off guard when people would, like, why is this a problem? You cough, you sneeze, these things happen.
Right.
How is this a problem? And why? Almost like I was getting picked on, like people were trying to fix me, like I said. And I don't think people are broken just because they're different. No matter, even experiences where we say we're broken, it's fixable. We're not permanently damaged and permanently out of commission.
So this must have been at a time where Tourette's really wasn't well understood or kind of well known. Is that?
I still don't think it's very well known. I still have people that I'm in a lot of Tourette syndrome support groups on social media. They still have people trying to perform exorcisms on them because they think they're possessed.
Wow.
Or, there's still so much that people with Tourette's have to deal with. And a lot of what I see in these support groups are just people who are frustrated and they just want a place to vent, but they're too scared to talk about it. And there's no way that we're really going to fix this without talking about it.
Right.
So.
Well, that sounds like what you've made your somewhat of your life's work is to kind of talk about this then. So that's fantastic. I'm impressed that you've taken this tack in your life.
Thank you.
Did you feel like you had to make a breakthrough, or did you feel like you made a breakthrough in this with your family and with people around you, as far as them understanding
and with
what's going on
my family,
with you?
it was just kind of spending time. There were a couple of knee-jerk reactions. My brother would tell me, why don't you just close your mouth when these noises come? And I can't stop them.
Right.
You can try and hold back a cough. You're still going to cough even with your mouth shut. I still make noises with my mouth shut. It doesn't matter. But just like when you hold back a cough, when you hold back Tourette syndrome, that just kind of builds up. Once you finally decide, okay, I can cough now, you're going to be coughing for 5 minutes instead of the 1 or 2 small coughs before. So I prefer to just let my tics happen as they happen rather than holding them back, letting them build up, and then I'm going to be ticking for who knows how long.
Yeah.
So getting past those knee-jerk reactions, we're just kind of spending time around people. As far as that particular school year when I was kicked out of the program, fun story. There was actually a lot more going on that summer. I had just broken up with my very first boyfriend who had been sexually abusive, and like I said, I'd failed all of my classes. I just had thing after thing after thing happen.
Wow.
My job told me, we're going to have to let you go to make room for some international students that are on a work-study program. So I was losing my job, which meant I didn't have money. I wasn't eating well. I got super stressed, and so I wasn't sleeping, so then my health declined. I got sick. I was trying to talk to my mom one day just in tears, and my cell phone lost service. I'd gotten to this point where I'd lost everything, and I was just so angry and so bitter about everything that was going on there. I couldn't catch a single break with anything. And that was a point where I'd realized I'd lost even more than I thought I did. I'd lost my very identity. I was always a happy and optimistic person. I've always been a spiritual person. I've always had a strong connection with God. And I just was so mad that I questioned if he was even there. And losing that identity, like I had really lost everything. And it kind of started with the Tourette syndrome, and it just snowballed out of control.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't remember why I started telling this story. I do that sometimes.
That's all right.
What was the
so
question?
we're talking, what finally broke you through?
This is going to sound really hilarious. The thing that finally broke me through was actually a Japanese anime.
Hey, no judging here. Whatever it takes. You're
right. With everything that had been going on and all of the processing, a sleeping pill would get me 4 hours of sleep a night. But during the day, because I wanted to numb myself and I didn't want to think about all that I was dealing with, I would watch this Japanese anime. And it was a show called One Piece.
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
You've heard of it?
Yeah, my kids are big into anime. So
yeah, and it got to this point where one of the pirate crew members had been captured by the government, and her crew was trying to save her, and she's like, no, just go. I'm not worth this. Like, go save the crew, go have your adventures, go do your thing. I'm just done. And it wasn't until they're like on this wall, standing there facing her, like deep in the heart of this government island. They've already gone through so much. They're like, do you want us to save you or not? And she hit her knees and she just screamed, I want to live. And I just started crying. Like, that was just something that I related to, like, because I had considered suicide at that point. There was so much going on.
Yeah.
It was just so done. And recognizing that I wanted to live was kind of the turning point of, okay, well, what do I have to do next? How do I rebuild? Where do I go from here when I have literally nothing? But looking back, like, what a blessing that was to be able to go from having absolutely nothing, I've got nothing to lose, and being able to create what I wanted rather than just something that I had fallen into because I just happened, it just kind of had happened. Everything up in my life to that point had just kind of been coincidence, and this was something that I got to intentionally create and shape and build this life that I wanted. By the time I went back to school the following fall, I just cried every day with happiness because I had no idea that life could be that good.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's an amazing story to me, that you could be at that depth, and it's amazing what touches our hearts, what tells us that you're okay, that it's going to be okay, and these things that happen to you just happen to you. They're not who you are. Right. And that's the most impressive part about that, is that you found that, and yeah, everybody's method's a little bit different, and how we find these turning points that say it's okay. This has just happened, and I can move on from this. So. Why don't we take a quick break here, and we'll be right back on Rebuilding with Paula.
Some people are born smart or beautiful. I was born electric. My name is Michael Vane. the Elgin Corporation created me. And now they're trying to destroy me. I've got friends that can shoot lightning, create an EMP, create light. I'm getting more powerful every day. Which brings me to my question. How much electric am I going to get before I am no longer human?
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, host of the Five Kingdoms radio show right here on the Tribe of Kings Information Network. Be sure and tune in weekly to hear the latest and greatest on the Tribe of Kings and also to learn all those things that you need to do to be the best that you can be.
Welcome back to Rebuilding. Wade Boggs says a positive attitude can cause a chain reaction of positive thoughts, events, and outcomes. It is a catalyst, and it sparks extraordinary results. Now, today we're continuing our visit with Paula Jean Ferri, and we've had a fantastic discussion so far, so let's continue. Let's talk about lessons that you've learned through your experiences and what you've done.
Tourette's.
Yes.
By the way, Jess.
That's fine. So tell us some of the lessons you've learned in once you made that change or had that epiphany from the anime. Where have you gone from there?
From there, I got into the major that I ended up graduating in, International Cultural Studies with an emphasis in communications. That was probably the most validating thing I have ever done in my life. All of these things that I had always done, like I said, I just kind of done because I was good at it. I'd fallen into them, but I always felt very weird and very different, especially growing up in a small town where most people tend to be the same and very similar. And recognizing that some of these thoughts that I had, hey, I'm not the only one that thinks of these things. This is so cool. It was exciting. And a lot of the lessons that I learned about culture and societal rules, I took several classes that basically taught me all of these rules, the structure that we live in are all man-made. And they can be changed. We follow them, all of these unspoken rules, because it helps us to interact with one another. And what happens with awkward situations, and what I kind of compared this to having Tourette's. When we have awkward situations, basically what happens is we don't know the rules. And that's why no one knows what's going on, why things just feel awkward, because everyone's just going, well, what do I do now?
Right.
And recognizing that, well, if no one knows what to do, except for me, because I know what's going on. I know what's going on with my Tourette's and how I can use that to my advantage. I can scream in the middle of church, and I'm the one that guides what happens next because I'm the one doing it. I'm the one that determines if I laugh it off or if I run and hide and let everyone else determine how we're going to respond to this kind of situation. And so that was just a very empowering situation. I was so grateful that I had been kicked out of social work so that I could end up in this major and learn these rules, to realize how much power and control I have in my life, because I can pick and choose, first off, which societal rules work for me versus those that don't, and recognizing that when there are no rules, I make the rules.
Yeah. So being kicked out of this first program was really not a bad thing after all.
Not at all.
It gave you the opportunity to move forward and find something that really was your passion, or was something that helped you move forward. So, all right.
Yeah. So from there, instead of doing an internship, everyone always told me, you need to do an internship in order to graduate and get a good job. But this particular major also had the option of writing a senior paper. So I took an entire semester to write on Tourette syndrome. I had been recently diagnosed. I was diagnosed shortly after I'd been kicked out of the social work program. Okay, this is officially what it is. So I wanted to study more about it, and I looked into how Tourette syndrome affects communication. And also highly validating, my professor said, this is really great. There's really nothing like this in the field. This is new.
Wow.
Which is cool, coming from these professors and these mentors that you've been looking up to and have learned so much from, and you're suddenly feeling like I'm teaching them. This is cool. And they said, this really needs to be published. And that's kind of when my life came back full circle from the time that I was a kid and I wanted to write. And so I expanded it into a book, and that's how I almost in a way fell into a writing career, because the second I hit publish on that, I've never been an adrenaline junkie. I don't skydive. I don't bungee jump. Never understood why people do that.
That's right.
Until I hit publish with this book, and there was just such a rush. I get it. I get why people do that if they feel this feeling, because now I have to just keep doing it again and again and again.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I have here sitting behind the microphone. This is a rush to me to be able to meet people and understand their stories and learn from them is kind of my rush. I've always been an engineer and sit behind a computer all day, and that's I have my enjoyments there and the rush that I get from seeing something work. But this is something new. I'm excited for where this is going. So. What kind of things would you like other people to learn from your book and from your experience?
I want people to have that same understanding of how powerful they really are and how much we let societal rules dictate us. And they don't have to. Society changes and evolves. You look at what's happened even just in the past 10 years of how far technology's come, much less since technology's actually started, much less the Industrial Revolution from the time that people were all farmers. Life changes, circumstances and situations change, and those rules and that culture needs to evolve with it, but we need to be the ones that are willing to take control, not just of the culture, but also of our lives individually. We don't have to just kind of go with what's happened. We can create what we want in our lives. We can create our ideal jobs, our ideal families, our ideal circumstances. And just, there was so much of my life before where I just felt so powerless and so helpless, especially when you're in those deep, dark situations where just everything is going wrong and you feel so powerless, and we're not.
Well, that fits in. I don't know how much you know about the Tribe of Kings and some of our philosophies, but that fits in so well with what we teach, the 5 kingdoms. You have control over your relationship with God, your relationship with your family and friends and associates in the world, and so what you're saying just meshes in with what we feel too, and what we try and help men understand is they have control, and they don't have to isolate themselves. They don't have to feel like somebody else is running their lives. So that is, I'm glad you pointed that out. I think that is an important message for everyone to understand, is that they do have control over their lives. So, how is this experience, or how has, as you've grown through this, have you become closer to God and your family, and
yes, very much.
How has that changed in your life from when you were mad at him because he kicked you out of this program?
And it wasn't so much that I was mad at him. It was more that I was questioning whether he existed even. I didn't even know if he was there, because I had done everything I was supposed to do.
Right.
And he wasn't there to help me. I was getting no hand of support like I had always been taught would be there. And part of that summer where I was having this transition, I did kind of break down in tears, because I had gotten a blessing from a friend of mine to kind of help guide me through, and I'd asked more or less challenging, like, if you're there, prove it. This has always been something that has been poignant and special to me. I've always felt something. I've always known what to do after this. You know, I need something. Prove it. Prove that you're there.
Right.
And kind of sacrilegious, but it's fine.
I think there's more people than you that have those exact feelings.
I'm sure.
What is going on here? You better prove that you're there.
And the funny thing was, during this blessing, I felt nothing. But as soon as it was done, I still knew that God was there, even despite not feeling anything. And part of that was because of where I had led my life to. A lot of it was the decisions that I had been making and doing what I was supposed to do rather than actually having a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And part of that, seeing that more as a relationship, an actual being that I have a connection to, it's okay to be mad at them. It's okay to be mad at my mom sometimes. Sometimes we have to do a little bit of pushback to understand and fully communicate what's going on in our lives. And so I did then get mad, understanding that he was there.
Right.
And I yelled at him, and God, being the merciful God that he is, just kind of gently, well, let's try this. Let's try something else. And it was a long, hard process. I mean, it's still, I say that it's, in a short little podcast, you can't quite grasp the amount of time that it really does take to get over things. I understand that those are harder, but, there was, once I was willing to listen instead of just yell, and seeing this as an actual relationship where we communicate back and forth, that relationship has grown stronger, because sometimes I can say, okay, God, I'm going to do this. Help me do this. I'm going to do this. Stop me if I'm wrong. And sometimes he does have to interject and say, try again, darling. Let's
here. Let me nudge you a little bit this way.
Right. This isn't such a good idea. And I love how much he'll let me make my own decisions until he sees, okay, she's not quite learning. Maybe I need to give her a little bit more of a nudge. I feel like I've become more independent because of that strength in that relationship, understanding how much he trusts me, just like I trust him. He's not going to give us something that we can't handle. And sometimes I wish he didn't trust me so much, but at the same time, again, it's such an empowering thought. I just feel ever since this happened, and this was back in 2010, I just feel like I've grown so much more powerful in this relationship with him as well, because I have his power with me. I have his support.
Yeah. Yeah. So. That's a wonderful feeling to have too.
For sure.
You finally start building that relationship, and it does become personal. It does become something that's a part of you, and it's not just a hope or a faith. It's really you feel it.
It's
internally.
A team. More than just faith. Yeah.
So if someone came to you with kind of similar problems, what advice would you give them? Not necessarily Tourette's, but there's things in their life.
Right, hard things.
But even if it was Tourette's, what advice would you give?
First thing, I'm kind of a touchy person. I would give them a hug, because it's so hard, and I get that. And I just feel like hugs are a great way of connecting. Like sometimes there just aren't, I'm an author, and sometimes there just aren't words. And I would need to sit down with them, and I feel like the best thing to do is really have them to talk it out. A lot of what helped heal me was the writing, the fact that I had always been a journaler, and I have books, several books filled just from this one summer trying to figure things out. I wrote so much, and for some people, writing doesn't quite cut it. Sometimes people just need to talk it out.
Right.
And I've been learning a lot that I just sometimes need to ask better questions. It's not so much giving advice, but they need to figure things out for themselves. And I need to ask questions that can help lead them to where they want to be, because these journeys are all so individual. I can't tell you what's right and what's wrong. that's between you and God, what path your life needs to take. Again, that I want to give them that power to make that decision. I don't want to take away that power by telling them what to do. I've been studying a lot, and I've got some great friends that have been helping me a lot with just asking better questions.
Yeah, knowing the right question to ask. Well, on that note, let's take one more break before the end and the final segment on our show today, and we'll be right back.
My name is Alan Christofferson. You don't know me. Just another book in the library, my father would say, unopened and unread. You have no idea how far I've come or what I've lost. More important, you have no idea what I've found. I'm no one important or famous. No matter. It's better to be loved by one person who knows your soul than millions who don't even know your phone number. I have loved and been loved as deeply as a man can hope for, which makes me a lucky man. It also means that I have suffered. Life has taught me that in order to fly, you must first accept the possibility of falling. I don't know if anyone will ever read what I'm writing, but if you're holding this book, then you've found my story. That makes you my fellow sojourner. If you find something in my journey that will help you with yours, keep it. Some might call this a love story. Those without love will call it a travelogue. To me, it's one man's journey to find hope. There are things that happened to me that you might not believe. There were lessons learned that you might not be ready for. No matter. Accept or dismiss what you will. But let me warn you in advance, which is more than I got, that what you read won't be easy, but it's a story worth telling. It's the story of my walk.
Come, take a seat at the table. Take a load off and sit with us. The tribe will give you a place to sit, a place to connect, a place to make a difference. Come and claim your kingdoms. Come claim your life, the life you were meant to live, the man you were meant to be. Take your place. There's always room. Be the king you were meant to be. Welcome back, everyone, to Rebuilding. We're in our final segment with Paula, and we just want to get a few thoughts from you for this last segment. What advice would you give to people listening today who are facing fears or challenges in their life? What things would you offer as advice?
To actually face them, as opposed to like that summer where I mentioned I was just trying to numb myself, and we do that a lot with drugs, with alcohol, with watching too much TV. We find any way to escape reality that we really can, and that can be helpful. The Japanese anime did end up helping me in the end, but at the same time, we do need to face that reality and actually go through it. I mean, the fastest way out of a problem is going to be through it. You can't skirt around the edges. It's going to take longer.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice, is be willing to face it, and knowing that we're going to fail, but you're just going to get that much closer. I mean, when you're that low, you really don't have much to lose. You know, what's one failure compared to another at that point? Just
right.
Do it and move forward.
Well, and I've been reading a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Susan Jeffers, I love that book.
It's one of my favorite books now. And she basically states it's scarier, it's harder to not face the fear, to just keep that fear in there in front of you. It will always be there. But if you face it and you work through it and lean into it, that it actually reduces the fear, because then you know how to take care of it. So.
Right, because you're past it, it's behind you rather than constantly in front of you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's great advice. And that's a book that I would recommend to anybody, that Feel the Fear, but Do It Anyway. It's by Susan Jeffers. It's a wonderful book. Taught me a lot of things. So, what final recommendations do you have to people that want to be a writer or journaling? What kind of things would you recommend to help people face their fears or overcome an obstacle that's in front of them right now?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I mentioned I wrote and published a book about Tourette syndrome, how it affects communication. When I expanded that, it actually became how awkwardness can become more of a strength. So my first book is called Awkwardly Strong. I followed that up with a sequel called Tragically Strong, about dealing with hard things and how to heal, and again use that as a jumping off platform to like launch you into life rather than letting it hold you back. And I'm almost finished with my third book, which is going to be called Fearfully Strong, all about pushing past fears and using that again to be an advantage rather than something that holds you back.
So, Awkwardly Strong, Fearfully Strong, and Tragically Strong.
Yes.
Sound like wonderful books. I will have to look for them. So if other people besides me want to look for these, how do we get a hold of you? Where can we find your books?
My books are available on Amazon under Paula Jean Ferri. And I do have them in a couple of local bookstores around the Salt Lake Valley, in Frost Books and Marissa's Books so far. And I'm working on expanding that and getting them out into other venues as well. But I am also reachable I've got a blog, which is squeakyjess.blogspot.com.
Okay.
Because I call my Tourette syndrome Jess, just because they have so much personality. So Jess and Paula are kind of interchangeable in a way. I also write on medium.com, and that's a very interactive blog-like website as well. And then I've got an email, paula@paulajeanferri.com.
Okay. So, any other parting thoughts? Anything else you'd like to tell our listeners today?
Just again, coming back to this idea of how powerful we are. And I've actually been studying the past couple of weeks on a few different subjects that have been, everything that I've been studying have all kind of tied into this one idea, this concept of love. And I think that's the core thing behind anything that we do. And I think that love is power. It's the most powerful emotion that there is. That's why there's millions of love songs about it. That's why there's so many books and movies. This feeling and this emotion that can feel so elusive and constantly escaping us, because we're seeking after it rather than giving it. The more we give that emotion, the more we give love, the more it comes back. And that love, like I mentioned before, is powerful. When you love something enough, it doesn't matter how scared you are. For example, I love my nephews, but I'm afraid of heights. I don't care how much money you pay me. I'm not going to stand on the edge of a skyscraper and look over the edge. But if my nephew were on the edge of that building, you can bet it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay me, because I'm going to go after my nephew to make sure he's safe.
Right. That
love is more powerful than the fear. And that love is more powerful than any hard and tragic thing that we can go through, because it's that love that's going to heal us and bring us back.
Yeah.
It's that love that, again, is just the power, and it starts within us. We can't love others until we can sufficiently love ourselves.
Okay. That's so true. That is so very true. Well, Paula, I want to thank you today for being with us here today and sharing your story of transformation and growth and overcoming fear and your obstacles in your life. I do appreciate your time, taking your time to be here.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to Rebuilding on the Tribe of Kings Information Network today. I hope that you have heard something today that will help you on your path to rebuilding. Please go to speakpipe.com/rebuilding and leave me any thoughts, comments, suggestions, or questions. Just think your comment could be mentioned on a future show. Again, that's speakpipe.com/rebuilding. Remember, a dream written down with a deadline is a goal. A goal achieved is a dream come true. Until next time, I'm Jay Walter on the Tribe of Kings Information Network, and I am always rebuilding.